The Oversight Committee released some 30,000 pages of Epstein-related materials from the U.S. Justice Department last night, but critics argue most of that information was already public. Let's go live right now to CNN's chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju, up on Capitol Hill, and CNN's Kara Scannell. Manu, starting with you. What's the latest you're hearing from key members of Congress about the Epstein case?
Well, there's an escalating clash happened within the House Republican Conference about how to proceed here in the aftermath of the release by the House Oversight Committee of those roughly 33,000 pages from the Justice Department that they had to subpoena to get because of the criticism from folks like Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who said that that is simply public information for the most part and really doesn't reveal much, and that there's much more information he says must be released, which is why he is urging Republicans to side with this effort to circumvent Republican leadership and force a vote on his bill to compel the release of additional files on the Jeffrey Epstein case. This is something that has caused significant pushback from Republican leaders and the White House. Just moments ago, I'm told from sources inside a closed-door meeting that Speaker Mike Johnson urged Republicans not to sign on to that Massie effort, instead urging them to back a separate Republican bill to support the ongoing House probe. That's something that Massie calls political cover. Now, the White House has warned Republicans not to sign with Massie, even a White House official telling reporters last night that this would be viewed as an act of hostility. Asked about that earlier today, Thomas Massie pushed back.
I do find it interesting that the three co-sponsors are women. Maybe they have immunity from the threats from the White House. I do think it's disgusting that the White House has called their co-sponsorship a hostile act now. So you have the White House telling women who are trying to help women that who've been sexually exploited that that's somehow a hostile act.
Now, in order for Massie to succeed here, he will need the support of 6 Republicans to force a vote in the full House with all Democrats. And right now he has 3 Republicans who are backing this effort. Several other ones who have supported calling for more disclosure, more transparency in this Epstein case have so far not signed on to his effort amid this pressure campaign from the White House and Republican leadership, which is raising questions about whether Massie can ultimately get there. But he believes this news conference that's going to happen in a matter of minutes here, Wolf, could change the dynamic when we hear directly from some of these victims for the first time about everything they experienced in the Jeffrey Epstein controversy. So the question is going to be ultimately, Wolf, will that change the dynamic here on Capitol Hill, or will it simply lead to what we're seeing now, this stalemate, this internal battle that's happening within the GOP with Epstein in any way?
I don't know who's... I don't think that we can answer that question. Did anybody see Trump with Epstein back then? This is really not a political thing. We want the passage of the bill, and this is not to call out President Trump. My point was that he was friendly back then, did not think that it was a hoax, and was trying to help. And now it seems like all of a sudden somebody's in his ear and he's not. So I'm hoping he'll come back to where he was back in 2009, be on the side of the victims and stand with us.
On the passage of the bill,
go ahead. Didn't you answer that? Didn't you answer that? Do you want to answer it? Teresa will step up.
I would, Teresa J. Home. Happy to speak on that, because what I will say is she got this airtime and platform. Her voice was elevated way before our voices were elevated here today. And that same calm, manipulative voice that she had so polite there that day with Todd Blanche was the same polite, coercive, manipulative voice that I heard as she was grooming me to then send me off to the home of Jeffrey Epstein, where he would assault me. So that's what she was doing for hours, speaking with me, building relationship with me, building trust with me, allowing me to believe that I was going to get this job, a dream job that I had been recruited from my college, flown across the country from Los Angeles to New York City to interview, so I thought. So her voice that day was the same voice that sent me off to a monster. So nothing can be believed from what she says, because she's been charged with perjury. I myself could sit there and listen, and as I did, I sat there and listened to this woman's voice lie. And there was no pushback from Todd Blanche, because does he even have the facts to be able to push back on her?
Yeah.
We could sit there and push back. Why didn't we get to attend that? Why weren't we there that day? Or why wasn't even one of us consulted prior to that day in that meeting? And why on earth has she been moved from Florida to her, it basically is a prison spa. I mean, you know, let's be real. None of us were consulted. I found out, just like everyone here found out, through the media, through all of you. We found out about Ghislaine's transfer. So we are all, I'm very angry to sit there and listen. The feelings that come up listening to this woman's voice is repulsive. Yes, I would say it's triggering. We all work very hard on healing, and it still gets to us after 2 decades. It's a very long answer, but it's repulsive to sit there and listen to her voice in her interview.
Can we take two more questions? One over here.
Directly led to a $100 million payment from J.P. Morgan.
Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax, because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now, D.C., it's a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone. That's a term. It's a term of art. It's a safe zone because it's very safe. You can walk down the street now and nothing's going to happen. No crime, no murders, no nothing. Because we had a lot of problems with certain places, and we still do. All run by Democrats, or for the most part run by Democrats. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein...
Okay, we're going to pop back out now. Initially, the question he took, or comments he was making related to the Epstein files, you heard him there call it a Democratic hoax. That's even after all of what we've heard in the past hour from so many survivors of abuse detailing what they have experienced. I want to bring back our panel who is with me, and just let me come back to Eric Fudali, who has represented a number of Epstein survivors. The president now talking about other matters. What is your reaction to what we've been hearing this hour, and then what we just heard from the president?
I just don't understand what the hoax is. We just all watched as many survivors of Jeffrey Epstein told their story. I was fortunate enough to speak at the rally that was running parallel at the Capitol with multiple survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking about their truth, speaking about their stories, speaking about the fear he instilled, and just begging, all of us just advocating and begging this Department of Justice to release the files, stop slow rolling, stop giving us these behind-the-closed-door interviews. Stop giving us bits and pieces. Stop giving Ghislaine Maxwell a platform. Just release the files. Where is the hoax? These are real victims, real survivors with real stories whose lives were devastated by Jeffrey Epstein and those who enabled him, and all they want is full transparency, full exposure, and full closure. There's no hoax. These are real people.
Yeah, Lisa, some of these women, as we mentioned, are speaking out for the first time today, telling their stories. It's got to be so incredibly difficult to relive the trauma, to put themselves out there. One of these women is Marina Lacerda, who was previously identified as minor number 1 in court documents. What more did we learn?
Marina Lacerda, in some respects, is very representative of the larger body of Jeffrey Epstein victims. She talked about how she was recruited to his townhome on East 71st Street here in New York when she was 14 years old, about to start her freshman year of high school. She's a Brazilian immigrant. She said she was working 3 jobs to support her mother. And eventually, Jeffrey Epstein began to call her so frequently through his assistant, Leslie Groff, for massages that she dropped out of high school. It completely changed the course of her life. And even so, you could sense the trauma still sticking with her. I think in many respects, Marina Lacerda, even though not known to us before today, is very much in keeping with what we know about the particularly young victims that Epstein recruited and how he and others in his orbit exploited the vulnerabilities of girls with terrible home lives, immigration issues, they were new to the country, or who had experienced poverty in their own personal circumstances before coming into his employ, Anna.
And I want to play a little bit of what we heard from these survivors. This was Haley Robson describing being coerced into having to recruit more girls to work for Epstein and be exposed to his abuse, and what happened to her when a friend's stepmother eventually called the police. Let's watch.
The police treated me like a criminal. I had, by this time, had turned 18. I had been with Jeffrey since I was 16 and for 2 years. So they had told me so they told me I was going to be arrested. My name was then distributed to the press as a co-conspirator of my abuser, who I detested. My entire world was crashing in around me, and I started being threatened and bullied, till this day still receiving death threats.
Mimi, I mean, wow. How much courage did it take for these people to come forward and tell their stories in such a public way?
This footage is damning for Trump. Not only his footage, but the footage of the women who, we have to remember, were young girls. And I don't want to, like, I want to underscore this. Like, some of the things that they talk about happened like 20 years ago, and these women, if you look at them, they're still quite young. I want to underscore that because it really sets in your mind that this happened to them when they were even younger. Like, right? You get that sense, right? They are not women in their this is not an E. Jean Carroll thing even, right? They were 15, 16, whatever it was, 17, right? Because that's why even 20 years, like, 30 years later and some, whatever the years are, they still are young women. And the footage of them, the footage of the Congress people, again, from both sides of the aisle, and the footage of Trump now saying this is a quote-unquote Democrat hoax. That's vile. One, it's wrong, because if any party up until, 2 months ago made this a story, it was the Republicans, because they felt they could weaponize it against Bill Clinton or whatever, right? Just the general perception of the deep state being Democrat, they could use this. So this was Trump's story up until like May. And then it became a hoax. Why? Because Trump and his buddies are this is my estimation, are all up and down the thing. Yes, and some Democrats are in there too. We got to make that clear. But the only one admitting that both parties have, frankly, some creepazoids in them are the Democrats. The Democrats and some Republicans are admitting that being a creep to young women it has been at times bipartisan. Republicans are saying it's not real. And this footage here is damning for Trump. People are going to believe these women. They really are. Even Republicans. And I'm not suggesting that you're going to see Trump resign over this. But I do think that until the day he leaves this mortal coil, his reputation has been forever tarnished. He will go down as an American sicko.